This is We the Sales Engineers podcast, and as we figured out, this is show 135.
Welcome to We the SEs podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, Benny? How are you doing, my friend?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Went fishing for the third time or fourth time ever yesterday. Didn't catch anything, so
must be the beard.
It must do. I try. Yeah, I know. I think I need to grow it up to be a little bit longer to kind of dangle my beard in instead of a line. And
yeah, it's not big enough.
No, I'll get there.
That's not the way I was going. You went the opposite direction. I was saying that maybe you should shave it, but hey, if you want to grow it.
Perhaps. Yeah. I feel like you're more like nature person with a longer beard, and so maybe this will come to you.
I wouldn't know. How's it been going? So how you didn't catch any fish? But it was nice and warm outside, so
super
at least
warm
you didn't
out.
get cold. Yeah.
True. And also, like, I felt for the first time, I haven't really been fishing that often. I felt for the first time like the idea of fish nibbling at my rod, which was kind of a cool feeling to know that they're like going at it, but just wasn't able to close the deal. Yeah, that was a good time. How about you? How are you doing?
Good. Well, my wife is pregnant again, so we went for a photo shoot yesterday.
Nice.
That's the extent that I can get into details, because really it was nothing eventful. Kids were great. Wife was happy.
Nice.
I survived. Fake smile and all.
So. Fair. Well, it's always nice when those, I don't know, pictures are always nice because they last forever. So
if you look at them.
If you look at them.
Yeah, I don't think we've looked at any. I used one of them on the website. So if you want to check out one of the photo shoots that I've done with when my second was born, if you go to the About page on We the SEs, it'll be there.
It's a nice picture too.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's everybody around me, not just like they make the picture great, at least for me.
Very humble.
Others might not care. And we have a great guest today. Not to shut you up, but we have a great guest by the name of Binayak Konungo.
I've heard a lot about this guy. It's interesting guest. I
don't like him. I don't know. He rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, I've heard that about him.
So the reason I wanted to talk to you specifically, mainly because you ended your last job. You weren't very happy. So I want to talk about that. Actually, can we talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I would frame it as like, yeah, maybe I was just looking for something else that was being offered from another place.
Okay, then yeah. I guess we can't talk about that because we already did. And then I want to talk about the interview process and what you went through, how you found the role and what you prepared for. But before we jump in there, we have a sponsor again. So yay, we get to pay some bills. So what do we say? Let's hear a word from our sponsor. All right. Well, thanks again, CloudShare, for sponsoring the show. Let's get into it. Binayak Konungo. For those listening to us for the first time and they've never heard or seen you before in their life, who are you? What do you do? And why are you here?
Yeah, fair enough. Well, for those that haven't seen me before, you're not missing much. I apologize for having the first time. But yeah, who am I? My name is Binayak Konungo. Binny is maybe like the more colloquial way to go about it. I am a sales engineer, or have been a sales engineer, solutions architect, solutions consultant, whatever the name is, for, I guess, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years now. I'm like coming close to 3 years, give or take. Been able to do that at a couple of different companies. While I was a sales engineer for the first time, I never heard of what that was, and was like a lot of people, kind of went online wondering, what is a sales engineer? What do you do? And how does it all work? And came across We the SEs. It was a treasure trove of all sorts of information around sales engineering. And I had the opportunity to be on the show. I think it was somewhere in the late 80s, I believe. The show number late 80, not back in the 80s, despite the beard, I suppose.
And it's show 80. It's show 80, and they can see you without a beard right there.
Fair enough. Show 80.
You don't even have to listen to the show. Just look at the picture, and you can do it before and after.
Very true. No, good point. Yeah, it's crazy actually. Sometimes when I look back on pre-beard me, a whole other person. But
baby face.
Indeed, I do miss it sometimes. But anyways, so had the opportunity to be on the show. Was able to learn quite a lot too. About just sales engineering, and had the opportunity then to even come back onto the show and be a co-host with Ramsey, which has been ever so just gratifying, but very thankful for that, just to be able to learn so much more about this really cool role and space of sales engineering, pre-sales, and all that I never even knew about. And so that's kind of where we're at now, more or less. Recently started a job as a solutions architect at a new place, and that's who I am. And yeah, I don't know where I am, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's good. So you wanted to find another job for your own reasons. What did you do? Like we talked a lot about it. You applied for a lot of jobs, but
yeah,
well, you didn't apply for a lot of jobs, but you were looking. How did you find the jobs that you applied to?
Yeah, good question. So I don't know if this is a good thing per se, but I think an argument could be made for it. I'm pretty picky. I think due to the fact that I've had really good experiences at the places I have had the opportunity to work at, and that really just two other places prior to where I'm at now, from a corporate perspective, are places that I've worked at. So one was Halogen Software, which then got bought by a company called Saba, which subsequently recently-ish got bought by a company named Cornerstone On Demand, all like human resource software. And also had the opportunity to work at a place called Ascent Compliance most recently prior to where I'm at now. And both those places had really strong cultures around just treating their people well. They were well regarded in their space. All sorts of cool little initiatives, I suppose, that are maybe very I don't know, the pretty like classic software things, like I don't know, like Googly type of perks that they provide there,
Yeah,
and all that. And
yeah.
so like that, right?
No,
So like,
I was just saying, I went to Ascent. I met up with you a couple of times at Ascent, and we played ping pong.
that's right.
The companies that I've worked for never had anything like that, like Alcatel-Lucent. And I was asking when I was in my previous job for a squat rack to be in the office, but I guess they were worried that the bar would fall into the next floor downstairs.
Oh
So
no.
it was never provided to us. But yeah, you work in a perky kind of place, I guess you could
Yeah,
say.
exactly. Yeah, and like I'm a millennial too, so like I don't know, there's some millennial needs that need to be met more or less. Um,
Technically, I'm a millennial too.
oh, true enough. Yeah, good
Yeah.
point. And hence,
Different end of the spectrum of the millennials, though, like one of
true.
the early ones.
But I still think like you get that, or rather, you appreciate employees being well taken care of, I suppose, so that they're then, I don't know, always motivated to do better work at work when they feel like they're at home, maybe at work.
Yeah, I don't know if ping pong tables are the way to do it though, or snacks, or you know.
I think it's
I hate it when my company would bring in like a bunch of donuts and chocolates and put it in front of everybody because
fair.
Yeah, but that's neither here nor there.
Valid. And it definitely goes beyond just like the one little gesture, or like these little random gestures here and there. I think like you have to have a culture of treating your people well and like having your employees' best interests at heart beyond just like kind of like sprinkling a couple little things like play kids in this little thing and then like like work like slaves after.
Yeah, I find that works in like startup companies or companies that started up, I don't know, maybe in the 2000s, who started with that culture and kept that culture going. Most companies that I've worked for have been around for 80 years.
Fair enough.
And they've built up the whatever culture that they have, which is like, you grind, you work, you grind, you work. So basically you were looking for somewhere that does that offers you appreciativeness. I don't know if that's a term. It is now. So how did you find these? And in the end, it's not just what you're looking for. Sometimes like they need to be interested in you. How did you find those and find the intersection of the companies that were interested in you?
Fair. Well, typically that happens when you hear back from them, at least in my experience. So like I'll reach out to, there were a select number of companies that I'd reach out to. And some of them had contacts. Actually, I would say a decent number of them had some contacts there that were able to kind of get me connected with others at the organization that could kind of help me along in the process a bit. And yeah, I kind of get that intersection of interest, I suppose, when like maybe take that like fishing analogy or take a fishing analogy, like after I put my line out, those that actually like hooked on and engaged me after the fact, I suppose, was a point where I was like, okay, maybe something could happen here. And yeah, and then like kind of as you go on through the process, you learn more and kind of see yourself more in that role versus not. And yeah, so I guess that's kind of how I found my way to certain companies, and like certain companies again have reputations, certain companies that I just kind of know about within the Ottawa sphere, I suppose, of what's going on. And so those are the types of companies I suppose that I was initially gravitating towards.
So
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
quickly, did you actually apply online to any of the companies, or were they all through connections?
I think there were at least a couple that were through just online ones, like companies that may not even be here in Ottawa per se, but like in Toronto or Montreal, like really big companies too,
Okay.
that would be more of like, I don't know if I'm actually going to get a job with them per se, but it seems like a cool role. And it wasn't even necessarily only in sales engineering, like, but that was obviously the focus in many respects. But
did you hear back from them?
No.
Okay. So I guess the biggest point we should learn here is that connections. Well, I think everybody who listens to this podcast has heard me say this, or they at least know the best way to get a job is through connections.
Totally. Yeah. It's I completely agree.
I do think resumes, like I've written resumes that have gotten me interviews, right? And in one case, the resume on its own got me a job.
Nice.
Well, what I mean by that is I didn't have any connections at the company, and I went through a resume and still went through the process and got a job. So it wasn't the resume that got me the job, but got me a foot in. And a couple other companies where I put in my resume and I got all the way to, or either I got first or second interviews and then lost out. But basically, when I went through connections, it was always easier and safer.
Yeah, totally. I couldn't agree more. I haven't had that much experience in the world in that respect. And like, yeah, of the interviews I've ever gotten that were just based on an interview, minus the first job I ever got, they never really seem to go as far as when they do with connections.
Yeah. So were you actually researching companies, or were you just going on what you've heard, like companies you already know and you've already heard?
Yeah, I would say so. I think there was there even a company like, yeah, there might have been like one or two companies that I may have kind of went ahead and applied for that I didn't know about before looking into what they were all about. Like I would do a quick little Glassdoor search, see how they're regarded there, and do a couple quick little reviews to see like, is the solution good or whatever. Just pure like high level market research, I suppose. But in the most part, I would just go off what I already knew. And like, yeah. Oh, also, right. I forgot to say, I don't know, maybe this isn't a good thing to say on the podcast, but like, I hate writing resumes and I hate writing cover letters. Maybe I'm just lazy.
Nobody likes it.
Okay, fair enough.
It's a necessary evil. Like most people I know that have a job that want to stay in that job haven't updated their resume in years.
Totally.
The only reason I update my resume is because, I'm trying to help people update their resume. So I'm kind of, looking at what works best, and, can't point people towards my LinkedIn and say, use this as an example if it's not updated. Although I did notice on the last LinkedIn live stream that I wasn't as updated as it should be.
Fair. A little tweaks though. They're still ahead of I think like you're probably ahead of most people though when it comes to keeping things updated regardless. So
yeah, I think so. And again, that's because, most people are not looking for a job. But based on what you just said, the best time to look for a job is when you already have a job.
Right. Certainly. Oh my goodness. Yeah. From a stress perspective, it's so much better. Like I could remember back to when I was unemployed a little while ago and looking for a job, like every deal or like every opportunity you look at, and I don't know, I'm a big daydreamer too. So like every opportunity you look at, as you step a little bit further in any process to so you maybe get to the second interview or third interview or whatever it is, the more you see yourself or the more you're almost invested in getting that role. And as you get more invested with that, the more you start to get your blinders up because you don't want, I don't want to apply to too many things because that takes time and effort. And I already kind of see myself as jumping into this role, but it's always good to hedge your bets too. But anyways, when things eventually or maybe inevitably don't work out, it's that much more soul crushing. And now, with money perhaps running dry or whatever it is, it's way more stressful when you don't have a job and at least have some backing.
Yeah. But if you are in that situation, I don't agree with you, Benny, in terms of like, if you find a job that you like, you don't apply to anything else. It's kind of like sales.
Yeah,
where you want to build a funnel.
It's really bad.
You want to build a funnel and you only have one product to sell. So just keep building the funnel. Don't stop, because you never know. You might go through the entire interview process, do the demo, amazing demo. In the end, COVID hits, and now they did a hiring freeze.
Totally.
So
yeah, I would say I typically go to like, I don't know, if I try to get as far into the process with at least two. So that way, like, I don't know, I could kind of gauge, like if something doesn't work out, then at least I have one other one that I really want to go to that works out. But like as I get further in the funnel with other companies, like the less I start to like if I have like a third or fourth interview with a couple companies, I'm not as likely to spend a lot of time maybe, you know, reaching out to new companies I haven't reached out to yet. But yeah, no, not the best way. Your advice is good. It makes sense. I mean, you want to.
Well, I can understand it. Like it's not. It's like sales engineering in terms you want to build a funnel, but it's not like sales engineering because you're very emotionally invested and it's personal to you. Like this is going to affect your life.
Totally.
A sale will give you commission, but might not affect your life. So I get it. You're invested in those two companies. You're working hard, but if you are able to keep going and keep fighting, you know, keep doing it. And again, I reiterate, the best time, okay, let me rephrase it. The best time to apply for a job is when you're not desperate to leave your current job or you're out of a job. Basically, you're not desperate for a job.
Yeah, that's
Anyways,
true.
so how did you find the current role that you're working for?
Well, actually have you to thank in that respect. So I don't even think this role, at least at the time when I was looking for it, I don't know if it was up. Maybe it was, maybe not.
It was.
It
It
was
was under a different name. So I can't remember the exact title of the name, the title of the position, but the senior VP of sales, I guess. So you report to him.
Yeah, of revenue, but yeah.
Okay, well he wasn't that at the time, but he reached out to me and asked like, "What do you think of titles, SE titles?" And I think he had one that I didn't really like because it didn't show what the role was. And I told him like, "Hey, I would change it to this or that," and he did change it, which was great. You know, I had an effect on a job posting, and you know, I also told him like, if people cannot figure out what the role is by looking at the, you know, job description and forgetting about the title, then you maybe shouldn't hire them. But he was right. He's also like trying to get good people to come in and see it, and people look for specific titles. So he ended up changing the title, and that's I think when I actually pointed you to it,
Yeah,
and you ended up finding that.
And it's worth mentioning too, you didn't know this guy beforehand, did you?
No, he reached out to me you know, people reach out to me on VDSEs, so
Yeah,
and LinkedIn. I'm happy to help. Like I'm selfish about that because it makes me feel good. So.
totally, as it should, right? I think that's the coolest thing. Like, for somebody like entirely just out there in the blue to reach out to say like, hey, like Ramsey, like you're well, I don't know if it sounds bad, but like you're an icon in the sales engineering world. Like you're a
I think the saying was more, you seem like you know what you're doing.
fair enough, yeah, valid. I mean, yeah, that's accurate too. And yeah, exactly. Like you're a source of truth, and so and I definitely benefited from that because after you kind of described like how it was that the role, or maybe like what goes into this type of role, how it should be framed or positioned, and then you pointed me to it, like everything that the role was written into is like, oh yeah, that's perfect for sales engineering. That's exactly what I see this to all be and everything. So anyways, got I was able to see it through that. Thank you for almost writing it for me, perhaps, I suppose, the job description. Not actually, but
Well,
like,
I didn't. Okay, to be clear, we just talked about the title. I don't take credit for the job description. That was all him because I looked at it. He sent it to me. I think, if I recall correctly, he sent it to me. It looked like a sales engineering role.
fair.
Right, so I didn't do anything with that. I just told him change the title, or I recommended to change the title. And you know, it's great when a senior VPs reach out to a random SE online and then listens, which doesn't always happen. So your boss takes a lot of credit for that too.
Again, as you should. I think it's huge. And like yeah, eventually like I then got in contact with, like, I reached out based upon the role, and or I think I reached out. Did I?
Yeah, so no, I told you about it and I asked you if you want me to introduce you.
Right.
You're like, nope, I have my own connections.
Through FuseBuild. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so all right, how did that work out? How did that not work out? How did that work? Like the interview process, getting in, starting to talk about it.
Yeah, good question. So yeah, I'm sure I reached out to the people that I knew working there. By the way, the new company is called FuseBill. They do subscription billing management. Really cool team and everything. Cool product too.
FuseBill.com.
FuseBill.com. Yeah, check us out. We're not sponsored, by the way. The show. But yeah, so I'm sure I reached out to the people that I knew working there, asked them like, how are things? Does it kind of fit my criteria of like being a millennial place to work? What are the prospects of that company looking like as well? Are they like selling and things like that? Um, and then I still don't fully remember. I guess, yeah, maybe you passed over my resume, maybe somebody else
Nope,
did.
I
Oh
did
no,
not. So
cool.
you did not use my connection. You should have, but you didn't.
Fair enough.
Like you should use, like, I have direct line to the hiring manager. In my opinion, you should use it.
Yeah, true enough. Yeah, I've always been a little different, I
But it's
suppose.
okay. You want to stand on your own 2 feet. The
Yeah,
baby wants to fall on his own, which is great, Uh,
totally.
but you could have used that. I would recommend, if so, to the listeners, if you know someone who actually knows the hiring manager, go straight to them. It's great to go through your friends, but that also has a lot of weight if you think they'll put in a good word. Now,
True.
Benny didn't trust me to put in a good word, so
Yeah,
he
that's
went
true. You gotta be
the opposite
careful
route.
about Ramsey. I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, fair enough. In that case, then yeah, I probably sent my resume through a couple of friends I knew there, and eventually just got through the process. And I'm sure like my boss TJ, who's the guy that initially reached out to you,
Yeah.
he would have heard my name from two sides, probably like just knowing that I was involved with you, and then also getting it from people that are doing well at the company as well. That's also probably pretty important that when you're
Yeah.
getting yourself referred through a friend, try to make sure they're doing well at the company too, so that it holds some weight.
Yeah.
But yeah, then eventually I just more or less went through the process as anybody else did. Um,
Do you remember what the process was? Like, how many interviews did you do?
yeah, so definitely first introductory interview with
Was it with the
TJ.
recruiter or with TJ? With the
I think it's
man?
with TJ. So the company's very small, very lean. They don't actually have a dedicated HR department. That's something that it's kind of like an outsourced service,
Okay.
or they're able to like take care of it in house. But like a specific recruiter, they don't. At least I haven't come across one necessarily.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so I'm sure. So I spoke to TJ at least one or two times at the beginning just to get introduced, kind of validate that like I'm not entirely just coming from left field and don't really know anything about solution engineering or SaaS
Yeah.
companies or whatever it may be. And then at some point, I did well enough to show that kind of instilled some confidence in him for him to then connect me with the CTO for a more technical interview.
Okay.
And I'm not the most technical guy. Like I have a
Yeah.
business
Like,
background.
it's a different industry for you as well. Like, they're
Very
both
different.
SaaS, but different customer base.
Yeah.
How did that interview work? The technical interview.
Yeah. So the technical interview, thankfully, actually had its roots grounded in what I was already somewhat familiar with, which
Okay.
is just like how SaaS companies work or like how SaaS software works, not from like a deep back end perspective, but just like how customers are using things and how updates are
Okay.
pushed and how like, things be updated. And then also very API based as well. So the entire system more or less lives on a REST API. And so having some familiarity with that over my previous experience allowed me to kind of get through that as well. And then even so, this company has to deal with billing and subscription management. So like payments and like making sure customers are being invoiced properly and all that, and accounting ledgers and are being moved properly. My previous company had to do with compliance management. But I did have some background in accounting background. I took like 2 courses in accounting back in school. So I was able to understand a little bit. And like, I don't know, I have subscription services like Netflix or things like that. So I
Yeah.
kind of get the concept, but
You can use your real life experiences. It doesn't have to be work experience.
yeah,
You're a customer, right? So you know what
exactly.
you want and you know what customers go through. So you can
Yep,
use that to your advantage.
totally. But it's still super challenging, like just getting to know the ins and outs of anything. Yeah, it's been challenging, but super good at the same time. It's cool to be learning new things.
Yeah. Like, I know if I'm getting into a technical interview and maybe I'm doing it in a different industry, I try to hedge my bets. Like, if they start asking me technical questions, like, I can always write them down, even if I don't know technically I write them down when I don't know the answer, so that I can get back to them at a later date. Kind of like sales engineering when they're asking me questions,
That's
um,
nice.
uh, especially that if that's in a different industry. So you might want to try that. Not you, Benny, because you already have a job. But if you're applying to a different industry altogether, I would talk about what I'm strong at. Like, if they ask me questions about, Linux, like, yeah, I've used Linux. If you're going to ask me like detailed questions of how to debug certain situations, I might not be able to answer right now, but I can look it up and get back to you.
True, totally. And
So
too many
same
people,
thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
Fair. I was going to say, and just like maybe two things kind of like from that. Like one, it's really cool to be able to look back on some of those questions that you write down, because a lot of those are going to be like key things that company operates on, where it's like, what do you know about this use, like this situation or this software, or this piece of hardware, or this connection, whatever it is. I don't know. Typically those are pretty important for the running of their business. Like when you're able to answer that properly, that'll be another day you kind of take another step up on that ladder of understanding kind of what matters and how things need to be done for that company.
Yeah.
And also just like being transparent too, like when you don't know something. I think that saved me a lot, where again, I'm not the most technical person, and I was pretty transparent about like, hey, like this is kind of what I know about APIs, but like it's not as like in depth as it would need to be, I think, to be really good at this role, or to crush it. But like the trajectory of learning is there, and so they've been very supportive in my not being like fully there with respect to how everything all works, but knowing that I'm kind of getting closer.
Okay, so they weren't expecting you to know everything, but they were going to teach you all of that, right?
Yeah, more or less, or like at least like have, yeah, exactly. Like, give me the resource to be able to do that.
How many more interviews did you do? Did you have to do a demo or anything like that?
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So I think it was, I guess it would have been before the technical interview. I had to do a presentation demo type of deal to TJ, and yeah, that went well.
You got the job. So.
Yeah, sure, exactly. And I think I got to meet with the CEO as well before starting. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, wow, this is really bad. It wasn't even that long ago. I'm already forgetting the process. And then eventually kind of circled back with TJ when things were kind of finalizing rather.
Okay. And when you started the job, like you basically had to pick up a lot of new technologies, or learn at least how it works. Maybe not new technologies. How did you get about learning that without being overwhelmed with too many things, too many shiny lights?
Totally, yeah. Drinking from the fire hose is real. Thankfully, like I was kind of introduced to that concept already at my last place, and also at my last place, I kind of had this sense of like, I don't know, it takes about 3 months before you get, at least before I felt, and I think it was pretty standard for most different departments. It takes about 3 months before you feel like you're not going to get fired every day. So I kind of had that in the back of my head, where I was like, Benny, I'm going to give myself 3 months to at least like not be super hard on myself and not be super frustrated with not knowing things. But mind you, I think in my head, I was thinking it'll be a little bit sooner, because, I'm coming off the confidence of crushing it at my last place. And it's not going to take me as long as if I was new there to get ramped up over here. Turns out I was very naive. There's a lot of things that I'm still learning to this day, post 3 months, or almost at 3 months tomorrow, or 2 days from now. But yeah, so how do I handle it? I guess just bit by bit. And I think was recognizing that I'm going to get frustrated not knowing stuff was important too. But then always like taking advantage, or recognizing when I did start to understand stuff, and recognizing when I got through that process of like not knowing things, and like not even knowing what I don't know. And then eventually starting to uncover some of the things that I knew I didn't know, but again, still not knowing what I didn't know. And then eventually, once I started to get to the point of knowing what I didn't know and having less unknown unknowns, I knew that, okay, like this process of learning new things is working. It was also made even more difficult too, though, by it all being remote. So I think if there were like people in the office and I could just like go and kind of ping them, it would be nice. Also, being entirely new and only knowing a couple people at the company, like I don't want to just reach out to random people being like, hey, like I don't know what this means or what this is, and I never met you before, by the way. But yeah, it was challenging, but everyone was supportive, so they were able to help me when I needed it.
Out of curiosity, we have, I don't know if you know, we have that learning plan on our website where you can come up and like do a brain dump and figure out what you want to learn first. Did you use that at all?
Admittedly, I did not, but I did. I'm sure I used like that idea and concept though. Like,
so people have been doing this for years. You don't really need it. But if you're struggling with it, you can go to wetheSalesEngineers.com/learning-plan to download that freebie. It's basically it's going to help you figure out what you want to learn first, especially if you're in a new job. Because I had that problem where I joined a new company a couple of years back, right? And I'm a generalist SE, which means I cover a lot of technologies, a lot of stuff, and I'm still struggling. Not just because of the nature of the business. I guess if you ever learn everything, that means you're God, and I'm not.
yeah.
So yeah, like you're gonna have to figure that out. Anyways, Benny, I know you had to run soon, literally. So let's do the not so fire round, but let's do it in a fire round succession and see if your answers have changed since the last time we chatted.
Okay.
You want to do that?
Yeah, let's do it.
You want to ask the first? No, wait, I'll ask the first question. What was the first question?
Oh yeah. What do I like about being an SE?
Yes, there you go. Very good job asking the first question. What do you love
Uh,
about being a sales engineer?
Yeah, good question. So, well, maybe go back to what we were saying at the beginning ish. My title officially is actually now solutions architect. So,
Ooh.
now we the SA. No, yeah, what do I love about being an SE? I think still it's the opportunity to, and it's actually funny because I don't know if I'm there yet. But eventually it'll be to the point where I get to be that trusted advisor because of the fact that like
Yeah.
you know the solution from a technical perspective, you know what the business people are looking for, and you're able to bridge that gap really well. And I think like right now, personally, I still don't feel like I'm entirely confident with respect to my own knowledge to be able to fully be that full trusted advisor. But I'm getting there quite a bit. But I think
Hold on,
that's
hold
probably
on,
the biggest
hold on.
thing.
So if you don't know 100% of your product, how can you be a trusted advisor?
That's the thing, right? Like I'm able to rely on some other people that jump on calls with me right now that have that technical expertise. But
No, that's not the answer, man.
oh well,
You have to know a little bit more than your customer, and you have to be
right,
able to get them the right answers. Basically, don't lie to them. You don't have to know all the answers on the spot
right,
as sales engineers because there's a lot of stuff that customer A does differently than customer B, and we are going to try to figure that out. But as long as we don't lie and get them the right answers at some point, we are
true
trusted
enough.
advisors.
True,
And I'm just saying that because a lot of people think that way. And I want you to know, Benny, at least Benny, that you are doing your job. You could get better at it, but you're still a trusted advisor,
yeah, good point, I suppose.
unless you're lying.
However, I don't yeah, no, not lying, but like it's a new space and like all the different like details I suppose to do with like nuances do with billing and all that. From a billing clerk perspective, like they're going to know straight up just more than I do until I get like more familiar with their with all the different things that they could potentially do. Because there's so many different ways to do the same
Yeah.
thing, so many different nuances. So I don't feel like I'm at the point yet where I would call myself like I could play the role of being a trusted advisor. I could get the answers they're looking for, but for me to personally feel like I am that person, I could have that badge as trusted advisor to you, because I have a sense of knowledge that you know just barely maybe surpasses your own. That's something that I need to first get to first. So
Yeah.
when I fully feel that way, it's a great feeling. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not there yet.
So most of my customers know a lot more about me than me about certain things that they do, and I use that like tell them like, hey, teach me, like
Sure.
a
Yeah,
new way
totally.
of
Yeah.
doing billing. It's like, hey man, like I'm new, like show me how you do it so I can bring that information back to the company and make it easier for you. And
Totally.
then I bring back the questions. So it becomes a partnership, which is, trusted partnerships, I guess, not versus trusted advisors. So
Fair. No, that's a good point too. Admittedly, like, yeah, the whole idea of like being able to for them to be able to, well, first, actually, I don't know. I think I asked a question on a podcast. I don't know if it would be out yet or not, but this idea, I think I asked something around like, is it bad to ask a question and say you're new, as in like, would that lose you credibility to a prospect, like in the eyes of a prospect? And so, um, yeah, I think that if when you do go about it the right way, it could go over pretty well. People have been very nice in teaching me things, which
yeah,
has been nice. But I don't want to kind of seem like, oh wait, does this company know what they're talking about?
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, well, I guess it depends on how long you've been new. Like if you've been new for 5 years,
right.
that's
Yeah.
that's a different story. But if you're brand new, they're gonna know. You don't think they're gonna know from the way you talk and like,
Probably.
the
Yeah.
ums and ahs and trying to scratch your head trying to figure out the answer. You know,
Video off.
yeah.
But yeah,
Anyways, this is becoming the not so fire round. Let's
that's
speed it
okay.
up a little bit, and that's partially my fault because I'm asking follow-up questions.
It's all
What
right.
do you hate, or what would you change about sales engineering in this new role, I guess,
Ooh, what
or in
would I
general?
change? I don't know. I wish there was like, talking about those like like putting chips in your brains and like however those work. Like I wish you could just like plug something into your brain and just know everything about everything instead of having to learn
All right,
about.
realistically speaking,
Yeah, yeah. I know, I
what
know.
would you change?
Um, it's hard to say only because it's so new. Like,
I think what you're talking about is sales enablement, basically, or
what do you
sales engineering enablement. Having a way to learn something that you don't have to go research for days. If someone else done the research and just provides it to you, makes it easier for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when something is just yeah, absolutely. That's actually something I'm starting to make right now. Is actual documentation for that. To be able to like hand it off to somebody new and be like, hey, this is exactly how things kind of work from the perspective of somebody that's been you pretty
Good.
recently. That's probably the one thing. But I know that yeah, it's a work in progress.
No, some companies don't have that at all. My previous company didn't have that. My current company has that, but it's not the way I would want it to be.
Fair.
Right? And it could be the way 99% of the other SEs want it to be. So it's just not the way I use it. Anyways, all right. Better sales enablement. Perfect. Question number 3: is there a book or resource? Actually, what you've been reading a lot of books that are not related to, like, they're just fiction or something. What's your favorite book right now?
Yeah, so I actually took a break from it, but I'm starting to get back into it now, reading a book called The Gene. It's pretty big, but I think I probably was the last book I was talking to you about a while back when too. It's an interesting book. Just has to do with like a family's or some guys like search through like how heredity works and all that. Not really too relevant. I haven't even been reading too much other than that for a while now. I don't know. I think so. Definitely, we the SCs. Like, if you're listening to this, keep on looking through here. There's a lot of stuff on here. But even the other like SC communities, we've had some great guests that have some really good books as well, which we could throw into the show notes. There's all sorts of different, just cool resources for anything you're looking for out there. Just use the internet. It's probably the best resource you could use.
Oh, that's so just the internet. Okay. It's like my wife, can you get me my water? Where is it? It's in the house. All right, yeah, I'll start looking. Anyways, I love you, wifey. Don't be mad. Last question of the day, or of the not so fire round. What separates, in your mind, what separates great sales engineers from the okay ones?
Yeah, I think it's those that that are probably stealing answers from previous guests, but those that are inquisitive and are also not afraid to maybe step out of their role to do it, or what they perceive to be their role to do what's best for their customer or for their company. So if you kind of think that maybe a customer hasn't been reached out to, or maybe there's like a lull in the conversation and you're on with the sales guy, and you think that maybe you should like jump in with some like, I don't know, small talk that makes the conversation go a little bit more smoother, but you're like, oh, I'm the SC, I shouldn't be the person to do that. No, like jump in there, kind of become that trusted person, and have a conversation and create your own identity there. Or like if you think that something could be done better, like speak up about it and just help out.
Yeah, the 3 words I hate the most: not my job.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
Last question of the day, Binayak Konungo. Where can people reach out and chat with you if they want
Yeah,
to?
so LinkedIn is probably the best way. Throw that in the notes as well.
Not we the SE's forums.
We get these forums, yeah, every once in a while. It's true. I do get email notifications. That's a good way as well. Yeah, that's probably the big two. I'd say.
All right. Well, I know you got to run.
Just kidding.
What was that? I didn't hear it. I didn't hear the bad joke.
Oh, let's go. You can also text me at this number.
I'll put the number on in the show notes you offered. That's very generous of you, Benny.
Collect calls only. No,
we forgot to talk about it. So I do have a course called The Road to Sales Engineering, which is all about helping people go through that. So it's open now. If you guys are interested in learn, if you're non-SEs, or if you've been in SE a while and you can't remember what the process is and how to fix up your resume, you should check it out at wethesalesengineers.com/courses.
Definitely. Yeah, it's definitely, especially like it's a whole, I don't know, it's a role, or industry is not the right word, but it's a vocation that I think a lot of people just don't know about, and I think it's gaining in popularity, especially as the world is getting a little bit more remote. I shouldn't say that, but like as companies are appreciating remote work more, to be able to sell a solution and speak to it and know it is really important. And yeah, no, it's a cool place to go into, and you gotta know how to start. So.
And like, so basically what I did with you, what I've done with a few other SEs, and also we already launched a course, like this course in this January, February timeframe. And I worked with a few guys one-on-one, and now we're just doing a pre-recorded session on demand. You can listen to it whenever you want. And there's a few perks in there as well, and including office hours. So, for a sales engineer, I really hate selling. So I hope you guys, if you think that'll be useful for you, check it out. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions. And Benny literally has to go run because he thinks he's athletic.
No,
And
I made a commitment with other people. That's the worst part about it, when like they hold you accountable to run.
you need to keep up with them, not just run. You need to actually be
Dude,
in their vicinity.
yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah.
I'm glad
All right.
to know.
Well, I gotta run upstairs because I have 2 kids who keep me accountable and keep punching me in this another area. Anyways, again, this is Benny for Ramsey signing off.